Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. I'm Lynda, and this week, for the first time ever, we have a two-part interview. That's right, you're getting part one now. And then on Thursday, you'll be getting part two. These interviews with Dr. Sam Slattery are so full of fabulous information about diet, nutrition, exercise, IBS, all the things. And it's so much information that I feel like it's important to split it into two parts so everybody can adequately absorb all of the wisdom that Dr. Slattery has to give us. So here I bring you part one. And there we are.
Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Well, I'm good, thank you.
It's been a minute.
Yes, certainly has. I'm just trying to, I'm probably in the worst place in the world.
Hello, everybody. It's Lynda, and we are back once again for an episode of the Pilates Goddess podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for everybody who is leaving reviews, written reviews and ratings on the Apple podcast app. This is like super important and super helpful for me and the podcast. You can also rate on Spotify and then, share and listen with whoever you want and listen wherever you listen to your podcast, because this sucker is available everywhere right now. Today we have a wonderful guest, and I have a history with this guest, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Our guest today is Dr. Sam Slattery. Hi, Dr. Sam.
Hi there. Hi. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, I know I first met Sam Slattery when Tony and I were living in the Turks and Caicos Islands, because Dr. Slattery founded the Grace Bay Medical Center. And there were basically several times when we really needed his services and his specialists. And then Dr. Slattery also, when they started the National Health System in Turks and Caicos, came on board as head of that. So we kind of dealt with Dr. Slattery on the private side. We dealt with Dr. Slattery on the public side, dealt with him for all kinds of medical needs. And he always came through, and his staff was fabulous. And that is kind of my history with Dr. Slattery. Now, Dr. Slattery is a highly respected and trusted physician. He has over 40 years of experience on the front line of medical care. He is practical. He is very pragmatic, and he is very well recognized for being able to translate an extensive body of knowledge into a caring and empathetic approach that help individuals achieve their best health. He trained in medicine and surgery at St. Thomas's in London, qualifying in 1984. And he basically has a passion for health and a fundamental belief that all things are connected, and that the human body needs to be viewed from this connected perspective, that the human body is an ecosystem, that the human body is a collective rather than separate parts and separate systems. And in fact, Dr. Slattery has a new book out that I just finished reading called The Body Collective. Now, in the book, you talk about your own health crisis. right? And how
Yeah.
that health crisis then led you on this path to learn more about gastroenterology, to learn more about the ecosystems going on in the body, and to learn more about the simple things that people could do on the daily to really get healthier and feel better without needing a whole lot of medical, quote unquote, intervention. And that is something that I am a huge fan of. And in fact, Dr. Sam, you open your book with, I'm a doctor and I'm here to tell you not to go to doctors for your health advice.
Well,
so let's talk a little more about that.
Okay, well, the first thing, I'm just going to say one thing. So it's the Body Cooperative, not the Body Collective, but you wouldn't be the first person who's because I totally understand because really they're synonymous in many ways. So it is the Body Cooperative, and I guess there's a little bit of a subtle difference between the two, which is why we chose that word. So why do I choose? Well, it's very straightforward, actually. The reason I open my book with the piece of advice that you shouldn't go to a doctor for health advice is because most doctors know nothing about health. What happens is when you go to medical school, there's a very limited amount of time to transfer an enormous amount of knowledge. Over that sort of, it depends from school to school, but sort of 5 to 7 year period. And really, what the emphasis is on recognizing and diagnosing sickness. And then very much a sort of medical model of intervening with surgery or medication. And that sort of gets drummed into you. And then, you've got to spend a lot of time studying pharmacology, the side effects of drugs and medications that we give and the risk of the procedures that we do. So there literally isn't time to train doctors in health. We train them in sickness. So on the whole, to my mind, it doesn't make any sense to go to experts in sickness if you're interested in health. So that's why I started. I mean, it's a controversial statement, but slightly to make people sit up and go, well, that's interesting as well. So that's just a way I chose to open the book with a little bit of controversy, because I think it sets the tone for the rest of the book.
It pretty much does.
Yes. Well, because a lot of what's in the book is this doesn't sound very humble, but it's correct. So, but it is a new concept in a sense that it's a new concept to the medical profession. But I'm not alone in proposing it. There is an increasing number of people that are sort of beginning to catch on, and even governments are beginning to recognize that mental health and physical health probably go hand in hand, and that they should really address mental health more than physical, as much as physical health, not more than, but certainly give it. So we talk about parity of esteem in the United Kingdom now. So that's one thing. The other is, of course, that we're not human. So that's where so the Body Cooperative is really is sort of alluding to the fact that we're this sort of meta-organism. We're made up of human cells, but that's a small part of the body, and then this enormous colony of microorganisms. So
we're really kind of like a host in many ways.
No, I would say we're not a host. No? Actually, I think that's how people have been taught. We're actually we're much more like an ecosystem. So in a sense, you wouldn't say that a mahogany tree in the middle of a tropical rainforest is taking advantage of a tropical rainforest as a whole as being the host to that mahogany tree. It's an intricate part of the forest. Well, in fact, without the mahogany tree, it would be a very different forest. So it's not that we host these microorganisms. They are a very intricate part of what is really a meta-organism. The human body is an ecosystem, and it's just like a tropical rainforest or a coral reef, if you want, or whatever you're comfortable, whatever sort of ecological concept you sort of recognize. But essentially, you've got lots of different species working together to create the whole. So I think that's an important differentiation there. And so you can't you can't see this bacterial colony or the virus, indeed, the fungi and the other organisms that live in us as being as the human body cells hosting them. It's much more interconnected than that. There are those of us who would argue that actually that we basically they have caused us to evolve in such a way that they now live in a habitat which they have massive control over, by the way. I mean, your bacterial colony in your gut has enormous control over you, what goes on the rest of the body and the rest of the organism. So you could argue that bacteria that have been around for 30 billion years have managed to persuade other cells to do their bidding and provide a nice, comfy space, if you want, for them to live in, or ecosystem. And that it's become so advanced now that it can even control the environment outside of itself. That's sort of where we've gone. Anyway, so that's sort of a bit radical, but it's actually this is how it's working. That is who we are. Yeah.
And that does, it actually makes sense to me. And the interesting kind of side story that I have for this is that when I was in high school, I took AP biology. Now, I ended up being a philosophy major and going to grad school for that. But what I found very interesting in AP Bio was that the year that I took it, which was also 1984, was the year that all of the research studies showing mitochondrial DNA started coming out, and that's actually what I did my final project on was mitochondrial DNA, and I remember reading that and thinking, wow. So it's just become incorporated.
Yeah, absolutely. So mitochondria are probably bacteria that just became incorporated into the evolving cell, which is common. It's not a human feature. It's a lot of cells have mitochondria in them across all sorts of different species. But they're probably bacteria that have essentially then specialized into the role of producing energy. That's their job. For the rest of the cells. So they are the powerhouses or the power stations, if you want, of the cells. They generate the energy to run everything else within the cell.
Now, you started this path toward the Body Cooperative after having your own personal health crisis, yes?
Yeah, I think that would be true. Although I would probably go back. I mean, that's what finally precipitated it all coming together. That would be the sort of the if you want, the neck of the funnel. But actually the funnel was there before. So I sort of grew up in a household where firstly everybody questioned everything. So that was sort of helpful until my parents split up when I was in my early teens. And then I was always a biologist. So I've always been interested in ecosystems. That's been my thing. I'm also a Buddhist, philosophically at least, and so I've always known that things are interconnected. So those two fundamental and sort of, if you want, beliefs were always there through my whole career. And then my mother was always open-minded to alternative therapies and modalities of healing. She was a physical therapist, and she recognized the importance of physical health in both overall body health, but she also understood that it did help people mentally. So she sort of laid the groundwork all those years ago. And then, I actually became, I would say that through my career, I've always been interested in a holistic approach. And I went back through my library as I started to write the book and realized I had all sorts of books on herbs and acupuncture and stuff, many of which I sort of dipped in and out in really early on in my career. So the groundwork had actually been laid. And then, of course, I got sick. And my colleagues were really struggling to fix me. They really had no idea what to do. They didn't actually know what was wrong with me. And there were quite a lot of things wrong with me. But that's what brought it all, if you want, into the final stages of the sort of formulating a sort of a concept which was somewhat different from the current paradigm, or gestalt, if you want, that the body's sort of composed of separate bits and pieces, and that we can study cardiology separately from neurology, and that we can study both of those separately from psychology. And of course, that's just from an ecologist point of view. That's just, I mean, it's not to be my usual blunt self, but I'm going to be anyway. I mean, it's sort of childish when you think about it. I mean, it really is a childish concept. I mean, yes, it is childish. I will say it. So yeah, you have to look at the body as a whole. It's quite complicated. How all these different cells and organisms talk to each other, but it's also beautiful. I mean, it's more complicated than the universe, absolutely, for sure. And then, the other thing is that psychology is an enormous part of that. Psychology is just applied neurology, which I've never quite understood why the neurologists don't understand that, as is psychiatry. These thoughts and ideas and feelings and emotions come from our brain, which last time I checked is one of the biggest parts of the nervous system.
Right. And you actually discuss in the book something that is very near and dear to me as a child of bipolar parents, that a lot of the stuff that happens to us later in our lives is partly affected by the amount of stress that we are put under as kids.
Okay. This is a fundamental concept which perhaps I didn't bring out in the book. There were so many different themes woven into the book that because I did want to try and write an overall one-stop shop book that would allow people to at least have oversight. And one of my reviewers wrote it didn't really drill down very much, but that was fine because it gave her something to hang all her drilling downs onto, like there's a skeleton. So it was meant to be an overview. But I think the important thing that people just need to understand is that essentially it all starts in your gut, which is the second brain, along with the microbiota, this large bacterial colony, and your immune system. So that's the center of it all. And then everything radiates out from there. So as always with these wonderful live podcasts, I've lost my train of thought because you asked me a slightly different question, but that's the fun thing about doing these. I sort of like them because people are like, oh God, he's waffled on somewhere now. What's he going to say?
Well, no, because that actually, it makes sense, right? Because if you talk a lot about IBS and you have a very big interest in IBS, right? As part of your practice. And I have a lot of, clients with IBS. I've had IBS and my IBS started as a kid.
Yeah, that's right. You brought me back on track. Excellent. Thank you. Okay.
So my IBS started as a kid, came up again when I was in graduate school.
Yep. So yes. So the way this works is that as a child, you're laying down the basic neurological circuits, not only in your brain, but throughout the body. And you're also priming the immune system, most of which is in the gut wall. And you're also forming your microbial colony in the gut, which is that's pretty much finished by the age of 3. The other two continue to, if you want, mature and change. And the microbial colony in the gut changes, but the basic composition seems to be pretty much finished by the age of 3. Now, from an ecological point of view, the environment in which you grow up shapes the nature of the nervous system that you develop over the next X number of years. I mean, there's some debate. You could say it's all done by 7. I'd say it's probably more likely or mostly done by 12. And that will be both the neurological system and the immune system together, because they're really the same system, two branches, the same system functionally, along with the microbiota. So what happens to you, and indeed what happens to your mum, but slightly different process, that's to do with epigenetics, but in terms of you as an individual, what happens to you during your childhood years shapes and almost, I would say, predicts your life story going forward. I mean, you can alter the story a little bit by living a good, healthy lifestyle. You can certainly make it a lot worse than should have been by living having a poor quality lifestyle. That's a different concept. But your basic, if you live well and have a healthy lifestyle, your destiny is sort of written by your 12th birthday, both mentally and physically. And I don't just pull that concept out of the air, because a very good friend of mine and one of the people who actually endorsed the book, one of the editorial reviewers, runs the largest birth cohort in the world, and she's the professor in charge of that. And she and I had long discussions about this, and she says that's absolutely correct. I mean, that's what our work has shown. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the circumstance you're born in terms of your socio-economic status. So you can be poor or you can be wealthy. It doesn't make any difference. It's the type of environment in terms of, was it a healthy environment mentally? Was it a healthy environment? Was it in terms of nurturing? Was it more like a village rather than a war zone? Was it a warm and friendly village? And that's what decides that decides who you're going to be. Yeah, and so many people struggle with ill health later in their life because their neuroimmune system was wired wrong during their childhood, because the environment was toxic, or it was dysfunctional, or it was whatever it was challenging. Now, in terms of the functional illnesses that I see in gastroenterology, and I've taken a particular interest in that, partly because I ended up in the same place, although there's a mixture of physical and emotional and psychological components in there, which is the case with most people. There is always some physical trigger in there. It is a dysfunction of the neuroimmune system, and I ended up with horrible IBS, and people in my practice obviously have all these strange and horrid symptoms and sort of odd bowel behavior, but it's bigger than just IBS. I see people with horrible chest pain and fibromyalgia, I personally believe, is a form of a neuroimmune system dysfunction. And there are lots of others. And they tend to produce really uncomfortable pain syndromes in various places in the body, and slightly different, if you want. They have slightly different stripes and colors to them. So we call them syndromes rather than diseases. So that's what that's all about. And then, so can you fix them? Which is the sort of next question, I guess. The answer is yes, you can. Yeah, that's what I do.
Right. And that's the great thing is that you, in the book, basically outline the kind of 5 components, right, of what makes a healthy human. Yeah. And I love also your very clear explanations on it. You're like, yes, there's a whole body size acceptance movement out there, and that's great and that's fine. But look, being overweight is not healthy, period, end of discussion. So you break things down basically into diet, right? Into what we eat.
Yeah. So that's the beginning, isn't it? It's all about diet at the end of the day. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And that's actually what you said, was that the biggest issue is really what we're eating.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
If we're going to pick something to focus on, that is the thing to focus on. And my takeaway was the first thing you really have to do is deal with sugar and starch.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, yes. Well, if that was the takeaway you got, then I did my job well. Yes, it's really distressing to me, actually. I mean, because this is just, I'm afraid, and I'm going to get into trouble for saying, but it's the truth. This is just corporate greed. It's as simple as that. We have been told by a food industry that exists to make money that they can make food. And the answer is they can make yummy substances that we all like to eat, that much of which is not good for us. But this is one of the problems that we have just generally. I mean, and I'm going to have the alcohol industry after me now as well, because at the end of the day, alcohol, the one drug that we legalize and is socially acceptable, is probably one of the most poisonous drugs on the planet. And sugar, a substance which we also treat sort of glibly, is probably one of the most toxic substances to the body, running fast after alcohol. So we've been sort of hoodwinked and convinced that these things are okay, but they're not okay. Now, that doesn't mean they're not fun. All right. If they weren't fun, we wouldn't use them. And of course, that's great. If I'm in the business of making them, then, there's nothing better than starting off with something that people like to have because it makes them feel good. It's fun. But unfortunately, it still doesn't mean that it's good for you. So yes, absolutely. Sugar and then starches are just hidden sugar. So the trouble is, going back to your comment before, it is now becoming politically difficult to say that, carrying extra weight is sort of, we've got to be more accepting. No, and I don't have any problems with that because a lot of what's in the book is about, getting rid of judgment, which I think is really horrid and is a big stressor for many people. And we talk about that in the whole chapter on stress. So judgment's horrid, but that doesn't mean that we should not tell the truth. I mean, this is the problem I really have with society today generally, and it's a personal feeling that we really struggle to get things right because quite correctly, we show sensitivity and tolerance to other human beings. Absolutely. This is a fundamental tenet of Buddhism, and I do too. But part of that respect, as far as I'm concerned, is to be honest with them and tell them the truth. Being overweight, drinking too much alcohol, consuming far too much sugar is bad for you. I mean, it's really very straightforward. And I'm doing you a disservice if I know that as a fact, and it is a fact. I'm not treating you respectfully if I sort of brush over that and go, oh, well, it's okay. I don't want to upset you today by telling you the truth. No, the truth of the matter is that these things are bad for you. Now, if I say that to you, then, of course, if you're a compassionate person, then the next thing that should happen is that, but look, I will help you address the issue. And let's see if together we can help you lose some weight or consume a little bit less sugar in steps and start stepping towards a lower sugar consumption because it will be good for you. This will be beneficial. Let's see if we can get to drink a little bit less alcohol and let's be a little bit more mindful about it. It's not that you have to stop completely, although there's no safe dose of alcohol, but, let's at least moderate it and let's help you get there. So it's not that I'm going, oh, you're overweight and that's a bad thing. No, you're overweight because you've been convinced that these things are safe and it's okay to eat and drink like this. But so that's not really your fault, is it? If that's what you've been told and the rest of society and marketers and advertising tell you that this is all fine. I think at one point, Coca-Cola running around telling everybody that all calories are the same. Well, I don't think about it, I know it. So I think it was Coke, and I shouldn't probably mention names, but it was certainly a soft drinks company tried to, for a while, advertise that, a calorie is a calorie. Well, that's absolute rubbish. From a physiological point of view, it's rubbish. I'd be as bold as to say that it's actually it's an untruth, which is a polite way of saying that it's an LIE. It's not correct.
Right.
And I don't think that's caring to be misleading like that, because the cost and the toll and the misery that people are experiencing and the medical bills that they have to, and it destroys families.
It does, especially here. I mean, people go bankrupt with the medical bills. And, one word that I hear you saying a lot, which is a word that is very dear to my heart, is moderation, is being moderate. Because, what I see a lot of here, and I'm sort of in this little bubble of, of a wealthier, lower Manhattan kind of demographic, right? So first, I'm telling you, a few years ago, I had clients getting gout from keto. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So not only had they stopped eating sugar, but they were going crazy on the bacon and the eggs Benedict. Right. So they were getting gout. Some of them were having heart attacks, actually, from all of that. Then I had the folks who decided that they wanted to exercise to lose weight, but decided to go to, CrossFit, Pilates, and 2 Soul Cycle classes in one day. So that they were always sore, always tired, always inflamed.
Absolutely. Always inflamed. Absolutely.
Always inflamed.
Yeah.
And frankly, when you're inflamed like that, you're not losing weight. You're not, your body doesn't even know what to do because it's just trying to control the fucking inflammation.
No, you're killing yourself. You're just shortening your lifespan. You're certainly shortening your health span. So all these ideas, the idea that you do all these things is going to make you healthy, it's a complete fallacy. And I make that statement in the book, in several places. I mean, if you need to be, if you are tired of fad things, you need to be tired of fad things. They're really bad for you. I mean, I'm sorry, I'll say these statements. It is not appropriate to set an alarm clock at 4:30 in the morning to go to a gymnasium, to stand on a treadmill or do a heavy cardio class and forego 2 hours sleep.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, that is actually really, really bad for you. Now, if you want to go and do cardio at 4:30 in the morning, okay, but then you need to go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, and get your sleep. If you've got an alarm clock, I would suggest you've got a problem. And it's a problem that will affect your health. So, there's no point in, trying to fix something. It's a bit like if you're trying to fill a bathtub, there's no point in leaving the plug out.
Right.
But that's what people do. But they do it. And I'm not criticizing, because it sounds like I'm being harsh. I'm not being harsh of individuals. What saddens me about all these so-called people trying to help other individuals be healthier is that they, just like doctors, fail to understand the system as a whole. They don't see the big picture. And that's really what drove me to write the book. The 5 elements matter. And it isn't a matter of just changing your diet. Change your diet a little bit. Change your exercise behaviors a little bit. Change your sleeping behaviors a little bit. Spend a bit of time doing nothing, a little bit of self-reflection, me time, one of the 5 elements. And then figure out how to manage your stress, because you can't get rid of it. We talk about stress. I talk about stress and strain in the book. So it's really important, the messages, and that's why I put them all in one book. That's why it's quite a high-level book, in the sense that it doesn't drill down into details. It's like you have to address all 5 of these things just a little bit, and then just keep walking a little bit further down that road. So if you're a couch potato, why don't we just do a 1/4 mile walk 3 times a week for the next month? The effect on your body will be a massive change. And then if you spend a bit of time thinking about it, because you do some me time self-reflection, which is not sitting on the couch reading the book, it's actually sitting on the couch thinking, well, how do I feel today? Is this stuff working? And cut the sugar out of your diet by half and see what happens. If you lose a couple of pounds around your tummy, and then if you sleep a bit better when you don't drink so much at night, or you drink a bit earlier, or you only make it 2 rather than 3, and you forego the nightcap. These are all tiny little changes. But if you make them, the effect is enormous. So yes, all these fad diets, fad exercises, I mean, it's all great. But the other thing is people don't stick to them. That's why they're fads. Like, Soul Cycle will be here this year, but I can almost guarantee Soul Cycle will be something where we all in 10 years will be going like, oh, do you remember Soul Cycle? That was such a cool thing when it was around. Do you remember Jane Fonda? You and I are old enough to remember Jane Fonda. I mean, Jane Fonda was like that, but now people laugh. This is the fad. That's the fad. And the whole.
And people laugh, even though if you look at all of Jane Fonda's old videos, she was basically teaching yoga, Pilates, and calisthenics, and it was all good. And it was all fine.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. There's no, it's funny. Like, I think I mentioned this to other people before. So my dad always used to say, knowledge it travels in a helix. It goes around and around in circles. We always end up in the same place. Very little new things to learn. What we do, though, is we start the science, and the researchers begin to fill in the clever details behind it that go, oh, that's why you shouldn't do that. That's why doing this is helpful. That's why they're being brought up in a village is good for you. Now we know why, because the sociologists and the psychologists have done the work to show why it was a good idea. Why not eating too much sugar? Everybody's sort of known about it for a long time. or being overweight isn't carrying more weight than you should, is not good for your health. We've sort of known that for ages. I mean, probably generations and centuries. But now we know why. So it's not that we've got new knowledge, it's we just have new details behind the knowledge.
Right. I was even thinking about that when I was reading your section, or, you refer to intermittent fasting several times in the book, but wow. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this conversation of part 1 of my talk with Dr. Sam Slattery, and come on back on Thursday for the rest of our discussion. See you soon, and thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.